Are we live? We are live. Good evening, members. Good evening and welcome to this North West Planning Committee held on the 8th of November 2023. My name is Councillor Maldon. I'm Chairperson of this committee. Members, we're streaming this meeting live as well as recording. By being present in this meeting, you're giving your consent to be recorded. During each item, please put your hand up to indicate if you wish to speak. I will then invite you at the appropriate time. Can I ask members to avoid approaching the top table? Oh, you're not going to do that anyway, as this could create interference. Please note that YouTube live stream sound recording is dependent on the correct use of the microphones. Therefore, can I ask, when invited to speak, you remember to turn on your microphone and turn it off when finished. Please reference a page or paragraph number when referring to the agenda papers. Keep your contributions as clear and concise as possible. Item 2 is apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies for absence, please? Yes.
Councillor Whiffin, because she's had to care for somebody tonight, so
Okay.
she's unable to.
And Councillor Hughes, just for domestic reasons.
Okay. So we have apologies from Councillor Whiffin and Hughes this evening. Item 3 is minutes. It's recommended that the minutes of the meeting held on the 13th of September, to be found on pages 7 to 12, are approved as a true and accurate record. I so move. Are you seconding, Councillor Morgan, or have you got
No, I'm
an
not
issue?
actually. I'm just pointing out that I stand to be corrected, but I think my my proposal to refuse the application on the Church Road development was seconded by Councillor Hughes.
Okay.
Not that it necessarily makes up, but I thought it ought to be.
Yeah, that's fine. And
Accuracy
we
being-
can amend accordingly. Okay, thank you very much indeed. Item 4, declarations of interest. To disclose the existence and nature of any disclosable pecuniary interests, other registrable interests and non-registrable interests related to items of business on this agenda, having regard to paragraph 9 and appendix B of the Code of Conduct for members. Members, you are reminded that you are also required to disclose an interest as soon as you become aware, should the need arise during the meeting. We have no declarations of interest, so we can move straight on to agenda item 5, which is the first report this evening, application 23/0021, full land adjacent to Eastholm, Latchingdon Road, Purleigh. And this was a member called in by Councillor White. Who is taking us through this, Mr. Johnson?
Lisa Greenwood.
Okay, Ms. Greenwood, you are ready to go. If we could hear you.
Yeah. We can't hear Lisa.
Are you?
She's moving.
We are moving. Are you muted or?
No, she's not muted.
Okay.
I can hear something very faintly. But obviously nowhere audio.
I assume somebody.
Yes.
I'm assuming somebody's moving that cursor because I'm not doing it with telepathic powers. But
And it was fine a while ago.
yeah,
Yeah, it was absolutely fine.
yeah, we did a test earlier. Yeah.
That was in the day.
Okay. Oh, this is upsetting my timings.
Sorry.
I know I've had issues with Teams with other people, and signing in and out of Teams has worked recently, so I don't know whether Lisa needs to do that.
Are the speakers turned on, as far as we know?
We can all hear each other though.
Oh,
Yes.
Yeah.
We've got you. hey.
There we go.
Okay.
There we go.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
we are.
Yeah, we go.
Perfect. Okay. This application is for the erection of 2 dwellings with associated landscaping and ancillary works at land adjacent Eastholm, Latchingdon Road, Purleigh. The site is located on the northern side of Latchingdon Road outside of a defined settlement boundary and is an open countryside. A dropped curb is located along the southern boundary, and this provides access to the rear of the site for maintenance to be provided to the field to the rear. This section of Latchingdon Road is characterised by ribbon development on both sides. The development on the northern side closest to the site is of a single storey. The building directly to the west is a bungalow with detached garage, and to the east is a farmhouse with associated buildings of Pale Pits Farm. The planning history for the site is a material consideration. In 2008, planning permission was sought for the erection of 2 chalet bungalows. The proposal was refused as the development was found to be contrary to the development plan. The development would have a harmful and adverse effect on the character and appearance of the rural area, to the detriment of the visual amenity of the countryside location. Furthermore, the site is remote from community services and essential support facilities and is inaccessible. An appeal was then made against this decision, and the appeal was dismissed. The inspector concluded that housing development at this site would have an urbanising influence, consolidating the ribbon development along Latchingdon Road, and this would have an adverse effect on the rural character and appearance of the surrounding area. Further, the proposal was contrary to the local plan, which directs new development to sites within the defined settlement boundaries in order to create a sustainable pattern of development. Future occupiers would be highly reliant on the use of the car to access facilities and services, and the inspector asserted that any new development needs in Cold Norton could be met within the settlement boundary. Now, this slide shows the elevations proposed for the refuse scheme, and as you can see, the development proposal was of a single storey, and the inspector stated that this, along with the associated residential paraphernalia, would have an urbanising effect on the rural area. This slide shows the proposed layout of the scheme we're assessing today, with outbuildings to the rear, attached garages and parking at the frontage. These slides show the proposed elevations for plot 1. The maximum height of the dwellings proposed is 10.822 metres. And then next to
Now you have frozen. No, okay. Could be Lisa's connection, I guess. She has frozen.
Can you still hear us in the chamber?
Well, I can hear you, Sean, yeah.
Yeah, it must be Lisa's connection.
you can see here's Eastholm.
Okay.
This is the site itself.
Lisa, I'm sorry, you're going to have to rewind because you froze, so we didn't pick any of that up. You just got to the
Second plot.
Where did I get
plot,
to?
plot 2.
The second plot.
Yeah.
The second plot elevations.
Okay.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. These slides show the proposed floor plans. And this slide shows the proposed floor plan for the outbuilding to the rear. As stated in the officer's report, the proposed elevations for the outbuildings have not been provided. However, the floor plans show that the proposed outbuildings would provide accommodation in the form of a living room, kitchen and bathroom and would measure 10 metres by 4 metres. Now, here are some slides to show photographs of the site and the adjacent residential development. This is the access which provides access to the field to the rear. This was approved simply so that the fields could be maintained and for no other reason. This is Eastholm, which is a single-storey bungalow. You can see it again there with the site there. This is a 1.5-storey, slightly further to the west. And these are the single-storey buildings to the east. As members are aware, the council is now able to demonstrate a robust 5-year housing land supply. The site is located outside of a defined settlement boundary. The footway that links the site to the settlement is not lit, which would deter future occupiers of the site to access the settlement on foot during the hours of darkness and in inclement weather. The settlement of Cold Norton is also classified in the local development plan as a smaller village with few or no services and facilities. The use of the car does not support the objectives of local or national planning policy which promote sustainable travel. With regard to the impact on the intrinsic character and beauty of the open countryside, the pattern of development found on this section of Latchingdon Road is that of ribbon development. The application site comprises a parcel of undeveloped land that is laid to grass with a hedgerow border along the frontage. Open and undeveloped plots such as this make a positive contribution to the character and appearance of the rural area, and the dwellings to the east and west are of a single storey and set within generous plots. Not only would the proposed development be at odds with the pattern of development, the proposal would create an urbanising effect that is at odds with the site's rural setting. Unlike the refuse scheme, however, which proposed 2 bungalows, this development proposes 2 two-storey detached dwellings that would extend to almost 11 metres in height. When viewed at the street scene, the dwellings would be visually prominent and out of keeping with the neighbouring single-storey development and would cause even greater harm than the previously refused scheme. In addition, a window and balcony proposed along the first floor side elevation of Plot 1 would result in the overlooking of the neighbouring site, Eastholm. For the reasons stated, it is therefore recommended that planning permission is refused. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Well, okay. Councillor White, you called this in.
I
so
did. I called it in because, I mean, everybody knows I'm generally in favour of small developments, and I wanted to be certain exactly what the application was and exactly what it entailed, which you don't really get until you get to the planning meeting. And the photos are actually quite misleading. It's on a very straight, fast road, and it's they would be set in between. It's a big field, and it's set in between 2 single-storey houses. I mean, you've got the site where we gave permission for converting a stable block, and then on the other side, that's the sort of weatherboarding one, the blue one, and then on the other side, there's the cottage there. And I know that there doesn't seem to be problems with flooding, but that field is about a foot above the main road, and the history of it was that they the residents bought it to stop travellers moving on, and they sort of promised they were never going to build on it, but obviously time moves on. Anyway, what I wanted to say was I wanted to have a really detailed look at the houses themselves, and they are completely out of keeping. So actually you'll be surprised that after calling it to committee, I actually agree with the officer's recommendation. I quite surprised myself on that one. So I'd like to propose that we accept the officer's recommendation.
Seconded.
Well, yes, it's a shame we had to go this far, but oh, so we have a public speaker. I'm sorry.
Sorry, we have a. Sorry, can I just interrupt? We do have a speaker.
Oh,
Chair, we do
The agent for the applicant.
okay. Sorry, I didn't see that. So well, no, we'll hear the agent. So thank you very much. Before we go on any further.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. You have 2 minutes from when you start to speak. I'm sure you know the score.
Can everyone hear me?
Yeah, oh yes, loud and clear.
Okay. Thank you for this opportunity to address the committee. I'd like to draw your attention to some crucial aspects of the proposed development and its significance within the local context. The 5-year housing land supply is a minimum requirement, not a ceiling, and there's a growing trend of developers winning appeals against its use as a reason for refusal. This development also contributes essential windfall housing aligned with the council's housing needs. The officer's reliance on the 2009 appeal decision is outdated. The NPPF was not published in 2009, and the need for housing was not at the forefront of the planning system. The value to be attributed to the provision of additional housing is now much higher. Cold Norton, which offered limited facilities at the time of appeal, is now defined as a medium village, offering facilities meeting residents' day-to-day needs and is merely 0.4 miles away. The officers claim that the proposed dwelling doesn't match the immediate context, overlooks the local architectural quality of surrounding buildings. The design and access statement establishes a local precedent for this style of design, despite not being strictly within Cold Norton's settlement boundary. This approach is supported by the National, Essex and Maldon design guides aimed at raising architectural standards. I'd also like to make the following key points regarding design. The officer's concerns about the impact on the neighbouring resident can be addressed with planning conditions. Examples include obscure glazing for the bedroom window nearest the neighbour and a visibility screen on the balcony. The height of the proposed dwellings is lower than perceived, with only the chimneys reaching 10.8 metres and the ridgeline at 9.2, similar to nearby 2-storey buildings opposite. The assertion of non-conforming linear development on Latchingdon Road is questionable. The majority of nearby dwellings are set back 10 to 25 metres from the road edge, and the proposed dwellings are set back over 20 metres. Eastholm, an exception, is set back 34 metres. The officer even acknowledges in their report that the proposed development would not appear unduly overbearing due to the separation distance and orientation, despite its height supposedly exceeding 10 metres. In conclusion, the development's benefits outweigh visual concerns, making it a logical addition to the area. I urge you to support this planning application. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Chairman. So I'm actually glad we heard that, but having paid careful attention to the agent's letter that I believe all members of the committee received, I don't know that I'm happy about the reason for refusal number 3, the one about the overlooking, and I would put in an amendment that we remove that. Otherwise, I fully support the other 2, and I am in agreement with the officer's recommendation to refuse. But if those matters could be mitigated against, I'd be concerned about including those as a reason for refusal, because 10 metres seems like quite a reasonable distance to me, and since it's a second window in each case, then it could be obscure glazed, I would have thought. But obviously,
Ms. Greenwood,
that needs to be seconded and supported by the committee, of course. Thank you.
Ms. Greenwood, have you got a comment, an answer to Councillor Thompson?
I have. The reason that we wouldn't obscure the glazing is because this serves a bedroom, which is a habitable room, and actually looking at that plot, the bed overlooks that window. So that's the reason that we wouldn't suggest obscure glazing in this instance. We would do that if it was an ensuite or a bathroom or something similar to that, but not on this occasion. And I think with regards to the fact that it's overbearing, when we're looking at something overbearing, we're looking at the impact on the immediate neighbours. So because of the separation distance, it wouldn't necessarily appear as overbearing. But when you view it at the street scene and you're looking at a development that's nearly 11 metres in height, it's going to appear very out of keeping with the single-storey development either side.
I think Councillor Thompson was referring to refusal point 3. Were you not?
Well, I was, yes, overbearing. Overbearing, definitely. It was the overlooking I was less sure about, and I thought it was a second window in the bedroom. But obviously, I'll be guided by the officers. I just want to be sure we're doing this right. I wouldn't want to do anything unreasonable and have a problem over one reason for refusal. Thanks.
Ms. Greenwood, can you clarify that for Councillor Thompson?
I think again we would look to obscure that window unless Mr. Johnson would disagree. Having looked at the plans, that's quite a large window that you would be looking to obscure.
Mr. Johnson is shaking his head, so I think he's also...
Yeah, I concur with Mrs. Greenwood.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Siddle.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, the other reason it's overbearing is there's a balcony, which people could go out and look into next door's garden. So the balcony in itself is overbearing and would it be an intrusion, and you can't obscure on a balcony at all. So.
Okay, Councillor White.
Thank you for allowing me to come back. Yeah, I mean, the other thing is, I read the emails from the agent and I listened to him again now. And the thing is, it is completely out of context. And although they may only be however many metres tall, the field's already raised and the street scene is bungalows and chalet bungalows directly adjacent to it. And it just does not fit in with the surrounding areas. So for me, it's I can't support it. I'm sorry, and I still stand by. Even listening to what he says, I still prefer.
Councillor Thompson, can we just have one speaking at once, please? Thank you, Councillor White. Yeah, Councillor Morgan.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I just really want to sort of comment that obviously I've listened to the agent's submission and read his email, etc. But the fact that this was refused back in 2008 and that refusal was upheld on appeal, I don't see anything particular that strikes me looking through the documentation that anything has changed in that. And that was for an application for 2 smaller buildings. And therefore, I concur with Councillor White's proposal that this be refused.
I think the significant change is that they're about 3 times the size and even more overbearing. So So did I have a proposer and seconder for proposed and councillor Morgan? So that is a proposal for the officer's recommendation to approve. Those in favour, please show.
No, refuse.
To refuse, I'm sorry. To refuse. Please indicate. That's everybody. So that is refused. We now move on to agenda item 6, which is Harmony Kennels, Brook House, Spar Lane, Purleigh. It's the Councillor White show again this evening. Councillor, another call in from Councillor White. Who's taking us through this one?
Mrs. Kirkcaldy.
Mrs. Kirkcaldy.
Yep, thank you.
Good evening.
Members. Thank you, Chairman. So this is an application at Harmony Kennels in Purleigh for the erection of a proposed single-storey dwelling, cart lodge and outbuilding. The site is situated outside of the defined development boundary to the north of Rudley Green Lane and the east of Spar Lane. Purleigh Village is about half a mile to the south of the site, and access into the site is gained from Spar Lane, which is off Chelmsford Road. Show you on the map here. So we've got Spar Lane here and Chelmsford Road here, and here's Rudley Green Road. So this is an aerial photograph of the site. We can see the buildings associated with the former kennel use of the site. We can also see the relationship with some of the most immediate neighbouring properties as well. So we've got the neighbouring properties here and here, and over here as well. And then we've got Spar Lane here, and then you can see all the buildings up here. Some members may recall that an application for a dwelling and a garage was previously considered by the committee in February of this year. The application was approved, therefore the principle of residential development on site has already been agreed and established. So in assessing this current application, the main considerations relate to design, layout, appearance and the impact on the wider countryside setting. On here we've got the block plan of the approved scheme, and we can see that the access was proposed off Spar Road. Here we can see the single-storey dwelling and the garage building and the garden curtilage to the side and to the rear. Members might be able to just make out the faint red line here, which is the buildings that are proposed to be demolished. So here we have the proposed block plan for the current scheme being considered. We can see that the proposed dwelling is of a similar position to that of the approved scheme, albeit it has moved 3 metres south from the boundary, which has enabled a larger gravelled forecourt here to the front of the dwelling. The proposed detached garage to the side is also in a similar position to that of the approved scheme. The current application proposes to introduce an outbuilding to the east of the site, which is here. Officers have raised concern in the report regarding this in relation to extending built form on the site into the countryside. So here are the elevations of the approved scheme for the dwelling. We can see it's quite a modest building, and the materials proposed were sort of black weatherboarding and a red brick plinth. And the design and appearance, it has similar to sort of an agricultural or rural outbuilding, so it would blend in with the countryside setting. So here we've got the elevations of the proposed scheme. We can see it's of a more ornate appearance and design than what's been approved. It would have an overall height of 6.4 metres. This is an increase of 1.5 metres from the approved scheme. The former kennel buildings on site were low-rise buildings with a height of 3.9 metres. Officers have raised concern that the increase in height of the dwelling would increase its prominence in the wider countryside setting. We can see there are 3 protruding gables on the front and on the rear elevations, which increases its overall sort of bulky appearance, increases overall depth as well. The fenestration proposed has also changed from that of the approved scheme, with most notably this glazed gable on the rear elevation.
So this is the floor plan of the approved scheme. And here we've got the floor plan of the current scheme that's being considered. It's not dissimilar in terms of the accommodation proposed. However, the footprint has increased in size marginally. We can see it's single storey with 2 bedrooms, en-suite, kitchen, living room, utility room and an enlarged entrance hall. So here we've got the garage elevations for the proposed garage cart lodge. It's of a similar size and scale and appearance to that previously approved, and officers raised no concern in regard to this part of the proposal. So these are the elevations of the proposed outbuilding that have been submitted for consideration. The outbuilding would have a width of 10 metres and a depth of 8.9 metres, and the height is 3.9 to the ridge. It's quite a substantial sized building, and officers have raised concern about this in the report due to the lack of clear justification for its size. In the last 2 weeks, we have received revised plans from the applicant for the outbuilding, which we can see the depth and the width remain the same, but the porch element has been removed. However, just to note, these plans haven't been accepted by officers as the committee report had already been drafted when they were received, and they don't overcome officer concerns regarding the size. So here we've got the floor plan for the outbuilding. It refers to a gymnasium area here and separate rooms for a garden storage, a bathroom and a store. The design and access statement refers to a hydrotherapy unit being provided. However, this isn't shown on the floor plans submitted. And these are the floor plans, revised floor plan that came in within the last couple of weeks. And it's the same, albeit that the port area has now been removed. Just looking at some photographs of the site. This is Chelmsford Road. You can just about make out the existing buildings in between the property here. And this is some photos of what the existing buildings look like at the moment on the site. So in summary, the officer recommendation is refusal. There is concern that the proposal, as a result of its design, layout and appearance, would result in a prominent form of development and visual intrusion and encroachment into the rural landscape setting. It would also be distinctly at odds with the unassuming presence of the existing buildings on site and that of the approved scheme. And the officer recommendation for refusal is set out on page 47 of the committee report. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. We have no speakers, I don't think, have we? No?
No speakers.
No speakers. That's great. Councillor White, your call in.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I actually called this one in because I have some concerns, great concerns about the recommendation for refusal, because it was only in February we, as the officer said, approved the principle of a bungalow on site. And yes, they've raised the ridge height by about 4 feet. But if you look at the photos, the first photo that we had from the main road, it's a whacking great 2-storey house, and this sits behind that house. So you're really not going to see anything from the road at all. And in fact, this one, we recommended for refusal at Northwest Planning. I was recommending refusal, and we agreed with the refusal because I had concerns. It's on a tight bend, and that access is off that tight bend, and I didn't think that was a suitable site for housing because of the bend. However, the other members agreed, we refused it, but that got approved at appeal. So we've lost quite a few appeals on this site. We have permission for a house already. I do know the applicant, not very well, but I do know him. I've met him at the parish council meetings, and I know he's quite frail and quite elderly, so I haven't discussed anything with him, but it makes sense he'd want a hydrotherapy unit because I don't think he's overly able. And for me, it's 4 feet higher. Yes, it's a bit ornate. You can't see anything from the road. You're not going to see it from the road. So although they've added in an extra outbuilding, I think the reasons for refusal are weak, and I think that there's a good chance that we'd lose this on appeal. So I think we should recommend this for approval. I don't know if I'll get a second or not, but that's my recommendation anyway. Thank you.
I'll go open it up to other officers, other members. I have my doubts, and I remember this coming forward and being discussing. I doubt we would have approved this particular design the first time round, because what we agreed, and I recall it because it was exactly in keeping as a sort of low-level weatherboarded house. But Councillor Siddle.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, what we approved last time was something which sort of matched the existing buildings that are there, was low key. It's not next to the road, however, it is right next to a public footpath and next to a bridle way. And behind that are open fields, and it would have a huge impact on the countryside, and would actually create more urbanisation in terms of that site, especially with the new outbuilding, which is right next to the perimeter, right next to the hedge and right next to those fields. And anybody who's going down that path and goes up Spar Hill, and you would go up Spar Hill, which is just at the end there, and you would see all of that, and it would have a big detrimental effect in terms of its height and in terms of its scale, and it's nothing like we approve. And so therefore I think we should take officers' recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. I'm going to largely echo Councillor Siddle. In point of fact, I didn't support it last time round. That's immaterial because a decision's a decision by the authority. But I think this is much less pleasing. I'll try and be charitable. And yeah, no, I'm totally with the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Councillor Morley first, then Councillor.
Yeah, I concur with Councillor Siddle. I think it is the scale of the project, I think, is the main concern. It does seem a bit out of with the original proposed building.
Thank you. Councillor Stevens.
Thank you. Yes, I agree with all of that. And also to say that if we were to approve this, the next thing, there'll be another small low-key outbuilding or some small building in that place where somebody will be coming forward and asking for another one of these. And the next thing we know, we'll have 10 of these on that area instead of what we have now. I think we'd be setting a bad, dangerous precedent. Thank you.
Okay, so there wasn't a seconder for Councillor White's proposal to approve this. Have we got one?
I'll second Councillor White's proposal.
What, to approve?
Yeah.
To approve the planning permission. Okay, thank you. So that was therefore the first proposal. So we'll put that first proposal to the vote. Those in favour of Councillor White's proposal, seconded by Councillor Morgan, to not follow the officer's recommendation but to approve this application, please show. 2, those against. 4, so that is lost. So I'm now looking for a proposer. Thank you, Councillor Siddle, and seconded by Councillor Stevens. That is a proposal to comply with the officer's recommendations of refusal. Those in favour, please show. That's 4. Those against. 2. That is carried. So that application is refused. We now come to agenda item 7, land at Broad Street Green, Green Road, Langford Road and Maypole Road, Great Totham, Essex, which is permanent diversion of a public right of way. Who is taking this? Is Mr. Johnson, I think, aren't you?
Yes.
Well done. Thank you.
From the officer's report.
Okay.
Thank you, Chairman. This application has been made under Section 257 of the Town and Country Planning Act, which relates to footpaths affected by development for a footpath diversion order. And Section 257 provides a competent authority, MDC in this case, with the power to authorise the diversion of any footpath if they are satisfied that it is necessary to do so in order to enable development to be carried out in accordance with the planning permission. Whilst MDC is a determining authority, Essex County Council, in their role as a highway authority, has been instructed to process the application. And that effectively sets a context that this is a footpath within the middle of the Haybridge development. And as members would have read through the papers, its purpose is to help facilitate the SOD system through the development, but at the same time, although there is a minor diversion of the footpath, in essence, the footpath uninhibited and retaining its current status will be retained on the site through this diversion. That's effectively the long and short of this proposal. And I think I'll just go to the plans, and we can see from this one here, if I can just try and make it slightly larger. If I just go back to the development description, because the development description, and hopefully it has been fairly clear what this is about and what is to be retained. So when it mentions the permanent diversion order of the sections noted A to B and F to G, and these are the routes to be closed. So further down here, we've got A, and then we've got A to B, and then we've got F to G. So these are the particular parts there. You can see where it sort of kinks there and kinks there, and also this element that goes out here, which runs alongside the attenuation basins as part of the strategic infrastructure elements of the proposal that have been approved previously. And just to be clear, from this point here, this is the spine road that effectively runs through the Haybridge development, to which you will have the local infrastructure, you'll have the schools, you'll have the shops around this area here. And this point below here is actually PROW 17. So that is to be unaffected. And although it is mentioned in the location, well, in the proposal address, there is no impact on PROW 17. That is also set out clearly within the officer's report. So on this basis, the report recommends approval and that members support this application for the permanent diversion of the footpath. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much. So can you just move that down a bit? So in actual fact, the change is only really at the top there. It still runs alongside Haybridge Wood.
Yeah, runs similar path along here.
And then so it's just going to divert around that attenuation pond.
Yeah. And you've got some minor kinks just there.
Okay. Okay, Councillor Stevens, you have a question?
Thank you. Yes, I do really. It feels like we don't have a choice here, and I'd like to understand, well, what would happen if we said no? Is my first, well, that's the question. And then the point that I wanted to raise on top of that is the bit C to D now seems to route the path alongside the road. I would have thought for a pedestrian it would be a lot more pleasant to be the other side where the path runs at the moment, and I can't see the need to move it. Maybe that could be explained, please. Thank you.
Well, I would have to just read from the report. But I can say that the explanation for this is set out at 3.6 of the report. I mean, I can go through it if it just helps to make it any more clearer. But it sets a context in terms of the green infrastructure parameter plan, and all these various plans have been approved. A key component is a retention and widening of existing ditches that run alongside existing field boundaries, and for both the transfer and storage of surface water. Then it goes into more detail. There's an existing ditch, so there is a logical reason why it is particularly in the places where they propose them.
Good to come back on that. Yes, I mean, I've read 3.6 and then read it again because I got to the end of it and just thought, not quite sure what I learned from all of that. I'm not getting from it, why does it need to move? And if I was walking through there, I'd rather just walk in a straight line than round. I'm not quite clear how far that is, but it would just be less pleasant to walk next to the road than it would be to walk between the wood and the pond. I can't understand, maybe I'm missing something, but I can't see the need for it. Thank you.
Well, I think 3.7 says it's evident that the diversion of right of way 19 is required to allow completion of the surface water drainage infrastructure for the wider development. So it looks like the existing footpath is going to be interfered with and become part of the SUDS scheme. Councillor Thompson and then Councillor Siddle.
Thank you. I was in fact going to ask through you, Mr. Johnson, if that's a technical way of saying it's going to be underwater a lot of the time because it's going to be through the SUDS.
Yeah.
Would that be about right?
Yes, that's effectively the case, yeah.
So we are expecting ramblers to walk on water at certain times of the year, which I'm sure they think they can. Sorry, Councillor Siddle.
Yeah, from what I understand and from what you can make out on the map, instead of there being a path there, there'll be a ditch there. And there's a blue line that goes down where the existing path is. So that's where the water's going to flow. So therefore the path can't exist anymore.
Okay, Councillor Morgan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think also quite significant, looking at 3.9.1, the Ramblers Association, who in my day job has caused me considerable difficulty in the past, will not oppose the proposed version, providing those fairest conditions is quite significant. So I would therefore propose that we accept the officer's recommendation.
I know exactly where you're coming from, Councillor Morgan. The Rambling Association really object to anything getting moved by an inch, let alone around a feature. So I think if they are happy with it,
I'll second that.
So that's a proposal. So we've got a proposed to agree by Councillor Morgan, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Those in favour, please show. Anybody against? One. Okay, so that is agreed. Thank you very much indeed. That, I think, members, is the last of the day, which means any items of business that the chairperson decides are urgent, you'll be very glad to hear there is none. So I close the meeting at 8:13. Thank you for your contributions. The meeting is now closed. Please leave promptly.
We were agreeing.